I was just sitting here thinking back when I was a kid. My mother taught me how to be gracious, and she taught me all of my manners. She taught me to say please when I wanted something and thank you when I got it. Thanks, Mom. But there's one thing I never really learned to say when I was a kid. 3 simple words that would have helped me from being over 200 pounds as a teenager. What I should have learned to say as a child was, no thank you. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? But think about it for a minute. Being able to say no thank you puts you back into control of your life. It means that you know when you've had enough and you're making the decision to stop. So you are in the driver's seat. But you are faced with all kinds of situations every day when saying no thank you is really tough. Here's an example. Think about what happens when you're at a family get-together, when they're passing the food around to feed, it's enough food to feed an army. Everyone says, eat, and it all looks so good and smells so wonderful, and everyone is piling heaps of food on their plate, and they come around, the food comes around for seconds, and you watch everyone eat more, and you think, well, why not? Why shouldn't I just keep eating more too? But that's when you have to get up enough nerve and courage to say, no thank you. Stand up and walk away from the table if you have to. People will understand. And if they don't, well, don't worry about it. You have to remain strong and committed to your goals. That's what's really important. How about when you go to the movies? You get all settled in your chair before the movie starts, all nice and comfy, and somebody jumps up and says, hey, you want popcorn, candy, and a soda? Well, what do you do then? You got to say, no, thank you. Hey, ever go to one of those potluck dinners where there's 97 million different kinds of food and you just have to taste every single one? Well, instead of piling your plate up so high that you need a building permit for it, take a small portion of the food, put it on your plate, and then go away. You don't need to have it all. How about the baby showers and the wedding showers? Oh, they're so much fun. Lots of goodies are passed around at those. It's easy to pick away at the snacks while they're opening the presents. And the more presents there are, the more you're going to pick. So here's my suggestion. Never having been to one of these before, I think you should stay long enough to be polite. Have a little something if you're hungry and quietly slip out before anyone notices. And finally, what do you do at the weddings? Oh, no. This is a tough one. If it's a sit-down dinner, you can portion out what's on your plate. You don't have to eat everything that's on your plate. Now, if it's a buffet, I say, stay away! Just kidding. But when you're in the buffet line, remember that it is not a free-for-all. So when they ask you if you want the carved roast beef, or the carved turkey breast, take the turkey and say, no thank you to the rest. Now, it's easy for me to say no thank you to a lot of foods. Like people will say, would you like some escargot? Those are snails. No, thank you. Would you like a little tofu quiche? No, thank you. I'm sure you can remember a few things you've been offered and didn't hesitate to say no thank you to. So when you get into some difficult situations like the ones we've talked about, it's going to take courage to say no thank you. When people offer you food and you know you've had enough to eat, don't feel embarrassed about saying no. Remember, you're in control. So if you're with a bunch of your Italian friends and they ask you if you want more to eat, say, no, grazie. You'll probably impress the heck out of them. And if you're in France and they say, do you want some pommes frites? Say, no, merci. Hey, because you've learned how to say no thank you. In the end, what you can really say to yourself is thank you, because you've said no to all those other things. Now you can say to yourself, thank you for staying in control.
Hey everybody, so today's video was about saying no. And the gist I got was specifically from family events. And this is going to end up being a longer video because I kind of have to explain the family dynamic here in order to explain why I never really had this problem. Or, I guess problem is probably the wrong word for that. But we would only have major gatherings 4 times a year. 3 of those were my mom's side. Because her family lived closer, we would spend Easter, Christmas Day, and Thanksgiving with them. And then usually one of my dad's siblings who lived closer would host a Christmas party at some point in December. And we would get together there. And my mom and dad are like one of at least half a dozen. And because of age gaps and stuff, like I was the youngest grandchild both sides. But like one side of the family, the next cousin, which would be a first cousin once removed, was born like when I was 11 or 12. The other one, I don't think I was even a year old yet. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much of an age gap there was. And then I think after a certain point, since we kind of were a serve-it-yourself family, once my parents realized that, you know, oh, she's only getting this nice turkey 4 times a year, we can trust her to grab this. We can trust her to grab mashed potatoes, corn, and that sort of thing. And not just fill up our plate with desserts. You can trust her to just go and grab stuff on her plate and go downstairs. They always made it clear that I was only getting 1 plate. So I kind of chose wisely, as it were. I still miss the Jell-O stuff. I don't know how my aunts made it. I want to say they just mixed Jell-O with whipped cream. Does that sound right to anybody? It had like a moussey texture, if I'm remembering right. It's been about 15 years since I've had that stuff. Those big gatherings kind of died out when my grandparents passed away. My dad's parents passed away mid-2000s. And then we didn't have a Christmas gathering for a while. And then they tried to bring it back after my one uncle passed away. And that was kind of the last hurrah that we'd had. And then I know that we've had a couple of summer get-togethers where it's basically been like they grilled hot dogs and we had chips and stuff where it wasn't that big. But like my mom, it went a little longer because my grandpa passed right before COVID. So sorry if you heard that noise, that's just my cooler kicking. But I think part of me was thinking too that, you know, at least with my dad's side of the family, there was like 40 plus of us crammed into a house. And you didn't want to be the one to deprive somebody else of good food. I mean, there was always leftovers, don't get me wrong. But, yeah. These days, usually, either my brother hosts, like, just our family, and by our family, I mean me and my mom. Or, like, all of us, or me and my mom, plus his in-laws. And it might be extended family too. It just depends on what the event is. Typically for Thanksgiving and or Easter, since my brother goes to his in-laws for that, my mom will come here to my apartment, so I'm not alone on a holiday. And so she's not alone on a holiday. And typically we just have something little. I'm not going to make a big old turkey for 2 of us. I think the one year we did turkey rolls, but they don't make those anymore, which stinks. Those are so good. For those of you who don't know what a turkey roll is, it's like a turkey loaf. It's basically a loaf of turkey, comes in an aluminum pan, and it has gravy in it. You cook it for a few hours in the oven. Typically, when my dad would make it, he would put it in right before we would leave for church, or before we would leave for Sunday school, and then when we come back from church, it'd be ready. But yeah, I miss making that. That was probably indulgent, but I think part of the benefit of me hosting now is that I don't have to worry about saying no because I'm the one who's kind of taking care of stuff. And there's always leftovers, which works out nice for making sure I have food for work. So again, that's not something I've necessarily had to deal with. I'm sure you guys are contrary to me. So yeah, this is a good skill to have if you are in a situation where you need to kind of assert that. Because I know my mom gives me a side eye sometimes, like, really, that's all you're grabbing? And, you know, if she ever brings it up, I'm like, hey, you know, I wasn't that hungry. I'm not going to eat if I'm not hungry. So, it's just a matter of standing up for yourself sometimes, I think. Have a good one.